started with the introductions. So, a very good morning to all of you. On behalf of Gargi Knowledge Solutions, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to the seventh session in the virtual career fair being organized by us. On behalf of Dr. Neha Agarwal and myself, Dr. Swati Agarwal, I once again welcome each and one of you and thank you for joining us on this session that we are organizing. Um, this session is basically to help create awareness about what liberal arts is and why is it that we need more people to have an education in this particular field. So we have a very eminent speaker, a professor of, who would be talking to us about this. And I will definitely hand it over to Neha to introduce him to all of us. But before that, I would like to quickly tell you a little bit about Gargi Knowledge Solutions and give you guidelines for the session. So Gargi Knowledge Solutions is a career counseling and career guidance company. We work with students of all ages and parents to help them make the right career decisions to ensure that they are happy and successful in whatever field they choose. And in order to be able to do that, we have been organizing this particular virtual career fair to create better awareness about different opportunities in all the fields that are available to them. As part of this particular session, some quick guidelines for all of you. We have our speaker who will be talking to us in the initial part of the session, and post that we will be taking up questions from each and every one of you. These questions you can type out in the chat box, or you can use the Q&A that's available to all the users on laptop or desktop. If you are on mobile, then you will not have the Q&A option given, so you can type in your questions in the chat box. We request everyone to keep themselves on mute and to switch off their videos to ensure that there are no connectivity or bandwidth issues. We will also be recording this particular session. So by joining this session, you are giving your consent to be recorded. We will be uploading the recording of the session on YouTube, where it's available for everyone to see. So if there are any parts of the session that you would like to go through once again, or you have missed out, you can always look it up. It will be available on the YouTube channel Career Gyan by Gargi Knowledge Solutions. With that, I would like to hand it over to Neha.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. Welcome to all the participants. Today, the topic is the need for liberal arts education, why the world needs more people with one. And to talk about this issue and throw more light on this, we have Professor Santosh Kumar, who is the Dean, School of Liberal Arts and Management Studies, PP Savani University. To give you a brief glimpse about Sir, so Sir has done his PhD in politics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and he's got his doctorate from University of Glasgow, UK as well. He is a professor of politics, public policy, and administration. He was also a JRF and SRF scholar. As a part of his PhD, he has visited the Department of Politics, University of Glasgow, on the Commonwealth Fellowship. Before joining as the Dean, founding Dean, School of Liberal Arts and Management Studies, PP Savani University, Sir has taught at many other universities such as Oro University, Surat, Flame University, Pune, Pandit Deendayal Petroleum University, Gandhinagar, the Mumbai campus, and Entrepreneurship Development Institute, Ahmedabad. He has more than 2.5 decades of experience in academics. He specializes in public policy, public administration, and development politics, and has wide-ranging experience in teaching, training, monitoring, and evaluation of the grassroots to policy advocacy. He's not just solely totally into academics, he is also a practitioner. He engages with quantitative and methods of research, case study, and content analysis being his preferred tools. As I mentioned to you, he's not a pure academician, but also has worked in the industry with various governments and non-government organizations As a part of that, he's worked with World Bank during 2004 to 2007. In this capacity, he was a part of that team which was instrumental in implementing various community-driven programs, development projects across various states of India, such as Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, etc. He has also worked in different countries such as Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh. He has also extended his consultancy services for monitoring and evaluation of various community-driven development assignments at multilateral international organizations such as UNDP, UNICEF, the Asian Development Bank, and many more. He has also been associated with several national and multilateral international development organizations in different capacities, especially in the South Asian region. He has also contributed to many books and has referred several papers and published them in reputed international and national journals. He has several research and field action report projects to his credit. He is also on the editorial board of 2 international journals and on the research advisory board of a number of academic institutions and professional bodies. I think we have the right person today to speak to us on what liberal arts is, what is the future of that, and what we can do with our degree in that. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this session with us and giving your precious Sunday morning to us. I hope the students will be very happy. I'm sure the students are very happy to interact with you. And over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Neha, Dr. Swati, and Dr. Aditi, for inviting me to be part of Gargi Knowledge Solutions initiative, such a profound initiative indeed. And I have been following this organization for various of your initiatives that you have taken to enlighten the students about the various options that are available to them all the times. So this morning, my dear students, and I have no idea, about your backgrounds, but I believe all of you are looking at liberal education as something which is going to be your future educational opportunity for you. So I, on my personal behalf and on behalf of my institution, PP Savani University, I welcome you this morning to whatever small I can take you on the path of understanding what is liberal education. And thank you, Dr. Neha, for introducing me in such an elaborate manner. You see, my journey with liberal education actually has been ever since the beginning of my academic career. I joined Tata Institute of Social Sciences way back in 1996. It was not a very unilinear kind of pedagogical format that I was actually going to follow there, because right from the beginning we understood that interdisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, and multidisciplinarity was something which was very important, and this is something that occurred to us in 1996. But let me go a few years prior to my academic professional journey. In fact, when I was a student of Jawaharlal Nehru University, I was, though pursuing my political science, Center for Political Studies in School of Social Sciences, JNU. So that institution actually offered us a kind of pedagogy which was making us, which was helping us to specialize in one aspect of politics, but in a very, very interdisciplinary manner, in a sense that along with political science, we were also exposed by way of design of the course itself to the other disciplines such as sociology, economics, history, international relations, anthropology, though anthropology was not taught in that manner, but history and anthropology was one subject which actually interested all of us, archaeology, and of course, language and all those kind of things. So I think our basic, our foundational training itself was in a very, very liberal studies manner, though we had no idea about, there was this particular word or phrase called liberal education, it was not there for any one of us. But then we were trained under that. So that basically broadened the horizon of one's thinking capacities. So while, on my academic journey since 1996, though I have known how to teach and how to connect the dots between the various disciplines, uh, it's very recently, since 2009, that I got to know this term called liberal education. And then I found that actually this is nothing new, because most of us who were trained into these kind of institutions were actually handheld by our teachers into multidisciplinary thinking. And then they were helping us to look beyond, first remove the blinkers of the subjects. So there's no subject which is completely yours and all the subjects are yours, right? So this connecting between the dots and connecting between the various disciplines was something which is actually the essence of liberal education. So just to help you with the presentation, I've got a small presentation to make here, and please allow me to share this presentation with all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So are you able to see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So welcome to my university. And I call this journey of liberal education as the critical academic thinking, and which also helps you to explore your life, which is very important. So I welcome you to this journey of critical academic thinking and life exploration. You see, a very profound thinker of the present generation, present times, Alvin Toffler, he said once that the illiterates of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn the things according to the contexts which are there. Which means your education has to be with reference to the context in which we are located. And if you are able to apply what you have been taught and what you are expected to apply by applying the philosophy of learning in the school, unlearning in the field, and relearning from your experiences, where again you are applying the learning part back. You see, so this is going to be the new definition of literacy, wisdom, education, in whichever manner we would want to understand this. I'm sure most of you guys know this particular face. He's Steve Jobs, and he is one of my favorite persons. I like him very much. So he once said, "Is technology married with liberal arts, married with humanities, that yields us the result that makes our heart sings?" He is trying to bring in together the perspective in which everything exists, or rather coexists. Technology exists, social sciences exist, humanities exist, everything exists. And if we are able to connect all these, whatever we have in front of us, then we are looking at a very, very beautiful future and present to begin with, right? Because all the things are developing on their own base. This is the essence of liberal arts in the present times and for the future. So the basic purpose of liberal arts education, hence, is not to basically allow the people to use their blinkers in the learning process, but to liberate the human being to exercise his or her own potential to the fullest. This is Barbara M. White. Now, why would Barbara say this thing? Because she also felt that it's important that you gain the complete potential of your existence to the fullest, so that you are able to actually decide what is it that you would want to do. And we know this for sure, and most of you, I'm sure, have seen the movie The Three Idiots. Now that's a very entertaining movie, but that also gives us a very, very solid foundations for what we must do. And if we like something that we do to the best of our liking, then we are the best in that particular profession also. Now, when I'm discussing about this particular thing, let me give you the perspective from the liberal studies background. Liberal studies is basically a philosophy. It's a process, and then it leads to a particular kind of outcome. And the outcome is that you, the students of the future, or you, the citizen of the future, must contribute in whichever want you would want to make your living out of. And then the times right now we are in is also known as something called Industry 4.0, and which is very uncertain. Industry 4.0 is fine, but what is going to be led because of this Industry 4.0 in terms of the professional, future is something which we have to discover every day. And in this kind of situation, unless and until we are able to, gain the potential, our own potentials to the fullest, will not be relevant to the future. This is something which liberal education teaches us, and hence it liberates us. Something, in a way, much more concrete way, this gentleman says, I do think that general liberal education with strong foundation and vertical specialization is very important, particularly in an uncertain and changing world. So, again, another Steve here. He is saying he's trying to, yeah,
Sir,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think the slides are not in a slideshow format. We are not able to see the next slides. It's only stuck on the first slide.
Oh, really? Let me, are you able to see this slide now?
Now we can, sir. I think it's not on the slideshow format.
So this is, I'm changing the slides. Are you able to see this slide now?
Yes,
Now
sir.
we can see, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I'm changing the slides one by one as it comes, right? Is it okay now?
yes, sir. It is.
Yeah, yeah. So
Thank you.
can you see these words there? I do think that general liberal arts education,
Yes, sir. We can.
this particular quote. Okay, so basically, the idea of liberal education is a very pyramidical. It basically looks like a kind of pyramid, at the bottom of which is a very strong foundation. And I'll tell you what exactly I mean by foundation, strong foundation. So it's again taken from a very simple theory of civil engineering. So you all know that any building to be constructed for any number of heights, for example, say Burj Khalifa, 30% of it, if it is not given in the foundation, then the buildings will never be stable. That is the simple logic of it. So in liberal education, generally, and particularly in education sector, if our foundations are not very strong, then obviously the vertical specialization, which is the need of the hour, in terms of both knowledge and in terms of the skill, is not going to be for the future, and it's not definitely relevant in the present times also. And the times are uncertain and changing all the times. So it brings me to the point that I should tell you that liberal arts is not a subject, but it's a way of facilitating learning in an inter and cross-disciplinary format. So what is meant by inter and cross-disciplinary format? I'll just get back to that. I'm sure most of you know this gentleman, Mr. Elon Musk. He has said recently that we are living in a weird world. This weird world itself is very weird concept, right? So how to make sense of this weird world, which is very important for us. And weird world is defined by these terms called VUCA. Now, VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, the term was coined by American Army, and they said that it's very difficult to identify what is going to be the future of world tomorrow, right? It is from their perspective that they decided to use the term VUCA, that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. From the security of USA and all those kind of things was their perspective, but we have taken it in a very different way. Now we know that the world is very volatile, it's very uncertain, very complex, and very ambiguous. And the recent entire 2020 was actually defined by VUCA. We had no idea on the 1st of January what we are getting into when we had ushered into the new year 2020, that how the world will become very volatile, how the world will become very uncertain, how the world actually has passed through so much of complexity, and even today it is very ambiguous. We have no idea if 2021 is actually going to be treating all of us so well. And it's very challenging times that we all have seen in the recent past, and we are still into the same thing. Though I would want to believe that we are 90% out of it, but still the 10% remains, and that is very uncertain.
Sir,
So if yeah,
sorry to interrupt, but your presentation is paused.
my presentation is paused. Are you able to see this particular slide, VUCA?
Like your slide is only visible.
Sorry.
We can
We are
see only
viewing
the
the sixth slide.
Are you able to see this VUCA slide? I'm on it
No.
right now.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Is it visible now?
So I think maybe if you can present it once again, sir, after you stop presenting, maybe it will.
Are you able to see this slide? What is liberal arts?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see this slide? Liberal
Yes.
arts is not a subject. Okay, let me put it on a slideshow.
Sir,
Are you able to see this slide?
Can you present it from starting?
Okay. Hi, you are able to see this slide?
Yes, sir.
Welcome. And this one? Saicharan, I think it was your voice. Are you able to see this slide, the illiterate of the 21st century?
No, sir. It is stuck on what is liberal arts now. Slide 7.
Oh, you have already, what is liberal arts? Can you see this slide?
Yeah, it is stuck on slide 7.
So
Sir,
this
if
is the
you can
slide.
send, yeah, but can you send it to me, sir? Maybe we can present it. As you go first.
Okay. Give me 2 minutes time.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Give
No
me 2
problem.
minutes time. Yeah. I'll just mail it to you on your email ID, right? Should I send it to director's email ID?
Sure, sir. I'll present it.
Okay. I'm sending it to you.
Sorry for disrupting.
No, perfectly all right.
Like
If it is not helping you, then what's the point of all this? Let me just send it across to you. Is getting attached. So in the meantime, let me keep talking. So what is basically happening is, because we are looking at a world view, are you able to hear me anyway? Please tell me, one of you, are you able to hear me?
We are able to hear you, sir. But this
No.
presentation
What I'm saying is that
stuck.
let me keep talking. No, that's okay. While the presentation is getting attached in your mail, let me keep talking. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
That is perfectly all right, right? So that we
Yes,
don't
sir.
waste much of time in doing this
Yes,
kind of
sir.
things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have the message is sent, huh? Please download it. I've already sent the message. Have you received it?
not yet, sir.
Will be
Okay.
maybe just 2 minutes.
I've just sent it. Maybe it will take time. So let me in the meantime keep talking about what I want to say. Are you able to see this slide now? This Elon Musk slide? Please, one of you say something.
No, sir.
No, sir.
We are living in a real world.
No, sir. We can only see the previous slide.
This one?
Yeah, the 7th slide. What is liberal arts?
Okay, so you can see this slide, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm changing the slide now. Can you see this slide now? The next one, we are living in a weird world.
No, sir.
Okay. let me do it this way. In that case, let me stop presenting and let me attach the slide once again. Maybe this time it will be better.
Sure, sir.
In the meantime, please see if you have received the slide.
Sure, sir.
Are you able to see it now?
Yes, sir. It is the Elon Musk slide.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm talking about this particular slide. Are you able to see this VUCA slide now?
No, sir.
No? Okay. So it's only Elon Musk. Please see if you have received it. And let me, in the meantime, keep talking from my slide. Okay. So that as soon as you receive it, please let me know. Okay. But let me keep talking about this particular thing. So that I'm able to tell the students whatever I want to. I think you should be receiving it in next 30 seconds or something. You see, so what is happening because of this VUCA phrase, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, it is basically impacting each and every aspect of our lives, right? The professional life, which is very important for us, the financial gains that we wish to have in our lives, the education that we want to see, the kind of profession that we would want to have. The times are no more when we would be stuck with one job for 35 years, like our parents and all. Because the world is changing so fast, people are jumping from one job to the other job, which is not considered unstable career growth anymore. And this is happening because people are looking at the best possible career options, whatever is available to them, anywhere that they are, that they would find. In fact, many of the professionals in the present times itself, they are not even looking at a kind of job. They are looking at the way they would want to express themselves in the best possible manner and earn whatever money they would want to earn. So the framework itself is changing for the professional life. So it is whatever we decided or we understood by the professional world 20 years back or even 10 years back, the things are changing, right? People would want to get into a job. So from our perspective, we can see our differences of perspectives on the word profession. And from the people who are giving you the job, their perspectives have also changed. So they want the students to jump, or they want their new recruits to jump on the day one itself, which means there has to be a complete readiness among the people who are students today and will be professionals tomorrow to start performing on day one itself, right? Which means you need to be having a kind of education, need to be part of that kind of education system, which prepares the students to develop an interconnect and interrelated worldview and thus face the challenges of the future, which is very much there. I remember as a child, I would see a film. I mean, I would see a video. This what do you call serial, Star Trek, and we would be mesmerized by the kind of science that would be used there. It was science fiction. I'm sure some of you would know about Mr. Spock and all those kind of people, right? Now, point is, if that was a scientific fiction those days, it is actually a reality today. So in 25, 30 years time, we have seen the entire science getting connected to the social society and philosophy and worldview actually becoming a reality. So how, and we are not sure what is going to happen tomorrow, right? So talking about technology, talking about philosophy, talking about ethics, talking about social sciences, talking about everything is so very challenging in the present times, and this will be further challenging in the present in coming few years time. So it is very important that we become part of that education system, which helps us to think about the future and how it is going to be relevant to us. So what happens in the liberal studies worldview is that you need to have a very profound base of the foundation courses, which I call horizontal learning. Neha ji and Swati ji, have you received the presentation as yet?
No, sir, we didn't, but we can see the next slide, study pattern.
You can see this slide.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. This is something I wanted them my young friends to see. So you can see the first yellow thing, horizontal learning. Uh, Horizontal learning, as I said earlier, it creates your foundation. So horizontal learning has to be very, very strong. Unless and until your foundations are very strong, it will be difficult to go to the green vertical, which is vertical specialization, which is defined in terms of the measures, right? So please remember that we are working with the three helix in our system. On the one side, you have educational institutions. On the other hand, you have society. And on the third vertical of the triangle, you have the professional world. And there has to be a constant connect between all the three, because three of the verticals of the triangle, which I called isosceles, equilateral triangle, it has to be in perfect balance with each other. And any significant or insignificant change in any of the vertices is going to actually lead to entire disruption. So liberal education is basically teaching us how to maintain that balance between all the three. And the most important is the base. If the topmost angle is A, then B and C angles, that base line B and C has to be your foundation courses. Then it goes towards the vertical specialization, which is defined in terms of your major and minor, which is again academic part of it. Now, liberal education presupposes that the students must go out in the field and explore for themselves whatever has happened in the first two verticals. So, I, as a practitioner, and I'll not call myself a philosopher of it, but as somebody who thinks about it, I believe that there's nothing which cannot be seen in the real life experience. Whether you talk about the abstract concepts like ethics, whether you talk about the sociological constructs of caste or class or anything, everything is there out in the world, and you need to go and explore it yourself. How exactly does it see? Which means liberal education proposes that everything cannot be taught in the classroom. And this is what I call experiential learning, which must happen concurrently and which can also happen given the pedagogy of an institution in the block manner, what we call exposure, or what we call internship, though it's not a very right word to use, but exposure to the real time situations where you actually keep on testing what you have understood in the classroom in a very, very interconnected manner, right? So when I'm using the word interconnected, though I'll be explaining to you again. But let us see, if your foundation courses has a paper on ethics and your major is going to be public administration or public policy or economics or anything, then you should be in a position to understand how ethics and philosophy and economics and politics actually is seen in the society. So ethics becomes very important for a public servant. This is what we teach to the IAS officers, right? So ethical basis of the public services. Now, when you talk about these two things, right, it's very easy for me to say it right now. So ethical aspects of the public servant, which means they must know what exactly is ethics, what is philosophy, what are the sources of it, and why it is very important for the public servant to be ethical, which is economic, which is political, which is administrative, which is everything, sociological, which is anthropological, which is cultural, right? And ethics has to be seen in every aspect of their existence. So experiential learning in terms of block and experience and concurrent experience is very important aspect of the liberal education. Last is, I consider this to be actually the most important, more important than the first three, is changing the skills and habits of the students in the present times. Now, what are these skills and habits? some of the, you see, the world today wants people with the skills, right? Now, what kind of skills you must have? You must have academic skills like critical thinking, like writing skills, like speaking skills, like skills of analysis by reading something, how you make sense of reading, etc., etc. And more importantly, how do you take care of the skills you must have for getting right kind of employment? So I have been part of several boards. I'm member of Union Public Service Commission. Sometimes I go for interviewing the young civil servants, and otherwise also I keep on interviewing at least for some or other position in any of the institution. The point is, if two people are seated in front of me, or two people have come to get the job, then point is, if I have to offer job to one of the person, then who should that person be? This is something which I check as a person on this side of the table, like what kind of employability skill that other candidate has, and that makes all the difference. Now, liberal education, because it has given you very, 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 very strong foundations. It has given you specialized learning in terms of majors and minors. It has also exposed you to several, experiences of life by field exposure and all. But you should be in a position to have those skills and skill set which you can exhibit to the person and in your own life, that you have the capacities to execute what you learn. Any employer will be most happy, and that's what takes us back to Steve Jobs, where he says that technology and liberal education must to come together. This is what is called employability skill, about which I'll talk in a while. So what are the value systems which the liberal education schools would promote? The first and most important thing is interdisciplinarity, which the conventional education system and many educational institutions in this country do not really propagate. But for to be the citizen of the future, you must be in a position to understand sociology along with economics, along with English literature, along with anything. Any discipline is your discipline. I mean, I'm a political science person, but I think I'm equally good at many other disciplines, which many of my colleagues may not actually say or would be in a position to say. So interdisciplinarity, not as a process or as a strategy, but as a philosophy and as a value, is very important aspect of the liberal education. Are you able to see this particular slide? Please say yes or no.
No, sir.
Values of liberal education?
No, sir.
Okay, but in the meantime, have you received, can you see the slide now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me, in that case, now is it visible? Values of liberal education?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the first value is of interdisciplinarity, where you are actually able to connect the different kind of disciplines from each other's perspective, each other's worldview. And let me tell you something which is very interesting. This entire philosophy of liberal education is nothing new. It started almost 360 years back in USA. So why this particular value system was very important at that point of time? Because when USA was building itself in the formative years, they wanted the education system to be such that it leads to building of a different kind of society. It leads to building of a different kind of democracy. It leads to bringing a different kind of economic space itself, where specializing in one discipline was good enough, but more important that people were multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. And then you see where the society called United States of America, or most of the European societies are there, vis-a-vis many other societies of the world, right? So as a value premise, interdisciplinarity is very important. And talking about the same thing from an Indian perspective, let me tell you that in the Indian systems of education, there was nothing called discipline. There was, I mean, if you look at Chanakya's or Kautilya's Arthashastra, the moment you ask what is the Arthashastra all about, people will say, some set of people will say, because it is Arthashastra, it must be book of economics. Or somebody will say, no, it's a book of politics. Some people will say, no, it gives us the information about the sociology. Actually, Arthashastra cannot belong to one discipline because it talks about all the disciplines. And this is actually a book on the statecraft, how to manage a state, society, economy, international relation, spying system, that is internal security system, international relations, everything, right? So in Indian system of education itself, we were never the believers of one discipline. It's only towards the end of the 19th century and 20th century that we started holding on to our discipline very profoundly, which was actually taking the entire discourse in a very wrong direction. And that is why liberal education as a value brings back the interdisciplinarity and that kind of thing very openly. Balance between theory and practice becomes very important, because everything theoretical is not good. The theory must be there for us to practice it, and practicing without theory is not going to help. But there has to be a balance between theory and practice. Critical and reflective thinking as a value system is very important. How can you reflect on certain thing in a very unbiased and non-judgmental manner, which is very important, right? We can be judgmental. We can always use the word good, bad, ugly, etc. But these things are only at a later stage. How can we be non-judgmental about our existence and reflect on the thing in an unbiased manner? And how can we be critical? Now, critical does not mean being, providing criticism. Critical means critiquing a particular situation from multiple perspectives and multiple disciplinary perspective. That gives you the bandwidth of connecting with any kind of situation in a very, very holistic manner. This is something which is missing in the present times, and that is why liberal education enables you. If you imbibe this value system of critical and reflective thinking, it is actually helpful. Most important thing is community engagement. Whatever you do in the classroom or whatever you do in an academic institution, how do you bring it back to the larger community? Now, this disengagement within community and people and the educational institution is something very serious. So people do not want to go back to the people. The students do not want to go back to the community. This is something, this difference between community engagement and academic institution is something which is not helping anyone. Last one is the most important one. We have forgotten two things very critically from our system, because we are very scared. We have stopped taking risk, and we are very scared of being a failure, right? So there's nothing called failure. It's always learning. The word failure itself is a very, very superfluous word. There's nothing called failure. It's always second opportunity, right? So we are very much worried about taking the second chance in our life, and hence we do not even take the first chance properly, because it's all about risk taking. So liberal education as a value system actually helps you to take risk, because this is how the world is going to be. We have taken very significant risks in 2020. 2021 itself is all full of risk, because we are having this, this vaccine, and we have no idea if we are going to be successful with this vaccine or not. But we have no other option but to look at it. Can you see this particular slide, the takeaways? Can you see this slide, the takeaways?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So any liberal education basically provides major and minor combination as a part of your vertical specialization, right? So you can have one specialization. It could be economics, it could be psychology, it could be English literature, it could be mass communication, it could be anything. It could be physics, it could be mathematics, right? So you can take a major And along with major, to supplement the knowledge component, you are expected to look at a minor. But my thinking says that if I restrict you to only one minor, I'm still limiting your options of learning. So in my scheme of things, I would want my students, and I have always done that, the students to expand their basket, look at one major, and they can go for two minors. Some of my students, believe me, they have been more adventurous than my imagination, and they have gone for double majors also. So they have majored in physics, and they have taken economics as their second major, or they have majored in English and they have taken public policy as their second major, or in any combination, right? So double major actually expands, but then it's also about the structuring of the course structure. And if you can actually manage double majors, nothing like it. In USA system, education system, they go for double majors. The fourth option that I have personally for my institution where I've been working, I have kept the option of no minors at all, right? So the fourth takeaway for in my scheme of things is you go for one specialization, but do not limit yourself to a particular minor or two minors or anything like that. But you can select from a bouquet of courses from intra and inter kind of subjects which are given to you through various schools and all. And the next thing that I have done is that I have looked at the internal specializations within the major very much. Experiential learning is something which I have told you. Now, the last point, I hope you are able to see this. I have written something like MOOC courses, right? Now, MOOC is something which is online courses. Coursera is offering you, major universities in the world offers you. In India itself, so many MOOC courses are being offered on open platform. You need to pay, and many times these courses are also cost-free. You don't have to pay any money for that. So these kind of things also are happening with you. You can look at any of the courses from anywhere in this world, in any university which you want to do, and whatever suits your, your liking, your bent of mind to learn, and if it also supports your specialization, you can go for that. This is the real liberal education. I'm actually skipping this particular slide. So I was talking to you about the foundation courses. Are you able to see this particular slide, foundation courses?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me expand it. Now, this is something that I offer as a kind of foundation courses in the first semester itself. So you can see A and B, these are quadrimesters, but all these courses, all these courses like linguistic proficiency, mind and behavior, Indian civilization, mathematical ability, essentials of entrepreneurship, ethics, world civilization, Indian civilization, everything is part of your first part of the what you call foundation. So foundations have to be taken from the various domains of knowledge. The knowledge could be to social sciences, the knowledge could be pertaining to the world of enterprise, social, humanities, environment, science, mathematics, logic, anything, mass communication, anything. Point is, you should know what constitutes the knowledge itself, which is, and one part of it is going to be your specialization, right? So foundation courses are very important, and any good institution of liberal education must be in a position to give you the foundation courses, without which you may not be able to understand the higher level courses in a particular major. So are you able to see this particular slide, the structure of major?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So how do we look at the structure of major? Major means your vertical specialization, right? Where you actually want to do lots and lots of studies, research. Now, research is something, when I was a student of Delhi University, believe me, research was something which was alien to us. This word itself, for the first time we got to know when we came to master's program in JNU, right? Before that, you read from multiple sources and you prepare notes and you just write that kind of answer. But now research as a skill has become central to the as a kind of value premise also in the field of learning itself. So my sons who are in one of them is in the first year of graduation. He is doing lots and lots of research. So he asked me, what is the most scientific way of doing research, right? The point is research as a kind of activity, as a kind of skill has become very important. So we provide 18 papers, or any good liberal education should provide you as many papers as possible as a part of that specialization. There has to be core of that particular subject, without which that specialization is not possible. And then there needs to be certain super specializations within that major itself. But the fifth topic is very important. You need to have the core skill orientation. And as I say, that you need to have two different types of skill. One is the knowledge-based skill, that is application of knowledge in the most appropriate manner. And the second is employability skill, which is again an extension of your core skill of your knowledge itself, right? Any good liberal education institution will teach you papers which are free of any kind of prerequisites. Because the moment you talk about the prerequisite, the liberal education is not going to be liberal education. It is very limiting. So anybody who wishes to understand one particular subject, is very important that he or she should be taught that subject as if he or she already knew about it. So no prerequisites for any paper should be part of the liberal education. Core skills, specializations, all those kind of things are very important. Are you able to see this slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now this is something which I'm just giving you at this point in time. So major in economics or regional development, politics, policy, etc., etc. So suppose one of you, I can't see your names there, so I cannot take, for example, any name. So suppose two friends of mine, Swati and Neha, they both are here, and they both come to me to do their specialization. And Swati wants to do her major in public history, or history for that matter, sciences, leave that and take something from the basket of economics and regional development. So she chooses to pursue her specialization in history with a minor in economics. Right? And within history, you have two sorry, you're not able to see the slide?
No, sir, we couldn't hear you. There was some disturbance from your end, I guess. We couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I think there was something. Actually, I'm sitting at my home and some neighbors are doing something. Okay, are you able to hear me properly now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So I was giving example of my friends, Swati and Neha. She is willing to do her minor. So I suggest to her that please, you cannot do any other minor from the School of Social Sciences. Do it from some other center. So she says, okay, I'm very much interested in economics. So she is specializing in history with a minor in economics, right? Now this gives her complete perspective of two very significant subjects, history and economics, in a very, very interconnected manner. Or Neha then says, no, I want to do something in sociology, and I'll be very much interested in regional development. Or she says, no, I'm an economics person and I like development economics very much, and I would like to do my minor in international relations. So Neha is having her major in economics with specialization in development economics and a minor in, say, South Asia or international relations. Now you can understand the kind of subject knowledge that they would have gathered, right? Now, this is something which is very important for us to offer to the new generation students, because it basically broadens your horizon in a very different manner. And this is the need of the hour. Somebody who is just stuck with one subject may not be able to connect with the other subjects, and it does not really make him skilled enough to get into the employment opportunities of the future. Now, this was only as a kind of example. I don't know how much of time do I have now, but let me just wind it up. Can you see this particular slide? Skill built through PSU's liberal arts program?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I was talking to you about the employability skills, right? Now, these are some of the 20 skills that we think will make you skilled enough to get any kind of good employment. And this is something which has come to us after lots and lots of research also. And we feel that if you are able to do this, people will be very happy to hire you. I can tell you, in fact, if one of you is coming to me with any of these skills or most of these skills, I'll tell you that please come and join me tomorrow itself. Because these are some of the things which we need for the people or the professionals of tomorrow. How do you lead yourselves? How do you embrace change? How do you build presence in front of the people? How do you make decisions? How do you define the problem? This is something which is beyond your curriculum of major and minor, right? This is something which we teach as a part of the liberal studies program, and any good liberal education program should teach you these kind of things. So critical thinking, speaking proficiently, decoding others, unleashing creativity, these are the employability or employable skills. Something I thought I'll tell you. Okay. Please say yes or no.
There was a bit of, yeah, we can see this, sir.
You can see this slide. Okay, let me just make it bigger. Now, these are some of the professional career options which are available to you. And this does not actually fit into the basket of one particular subject. People from any subject background with a combination of a different subject can get into any one of these kind of professional openings, right? But to become economist in corporate world, you should have major in economics, right? If you want to become a mythologist, a very famous mythologist is there. What is his name?
Devdutt Patnaik.
Yes, very good. Now it is actually his profession, right? Otherwise, he's a person from corporate world, but he is a mythologist, and he is also an illustrator par excellence, and he is a fabulous speaker, and he trains people to become mythologists. So what kind of background then you must have to become a mythologist, right? So you need to have psychology, you need to have social sciences, you need to have training in education, you need to have training in environment, history, so on and so forth, right? If these are the options available to you, then why not explore these kind of options? Why do you still want to get, remain content with the conventional education system? And mind you, we already have this new education policy, and it's going to be reflected, being implemented very soon. New education policy, and since I'm one of the authors of that new education policy, I know for sure that it is going to be actually defining the things for you. So it's important that you are able to take care of your education system in the present time with the kind of things which within the limited time I could explain to you. But now it's 12:31. I do not think I should be stretching you any further. So I'm sure there will be some questions. Please ask me if you have not understood anything. And I'm very sorry that there were certain unwanted disturbances and all those kind of things. So in whatever you want to ask me, you can ask me. I'm available to you to answer any of your questions. Thank you so much. I hope I have been able to make sense of whatever I wanted to say.
Yes, sir. It was a very enlightening session, sir. A lot of things got cleared, and we understand that maybe not just for social sciences, how this can be applied in different areas. Maybe in pure sciences also, you need to have a more broader and holistic approach. I think.
Oh, yes. Yes. You see, the new education policy would want the students of BTech to also study. Now it was an elective for them all this while, but it is going to be core that they have to study philosophy, they'll have to study social sciences, they will have to study, humanities. English as a paper was there, but now it has to be literature. Now
Yes.
we are looking at American system in a very, very, I'm not sure if we are ready for that psychologically. Indian community is ready for that. But if the people in USA can read history and medicine together,
Yes.
something like that we are looking at in our context, and this is going to be a reality. Let me be very, very forthright with that. This is the challenge of the education for the for the tomorrow. You can ask me any question. Either you can raise your hands or you can chat, put it in the chat box, whatever you want to do that.
Yes, sir. So if anyone of you have any questions, you can please type it out in the chat box. You also have the Q&A options. You can put it there and then we will ask your questions. Okay. I think Dr. Swati had one question.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we can probably answer that.
Yes, I can begin with that.
Yes. Swati, do you want to unmute
Yeah.
yourself and ask? Yeah.
So, actually, this thing that sir mentioned about how it's going to, in people who will take up engineering and, go on to a very technical fields and professional, courses as well. Um, Having a background or having certain papers in, humanities and social sciences will be a reality in future, because my question was basically how today with the increasing presence of AI, machine learning, there are a lot of questions about ethics. There are a lot of questions about how it impacts society, and it becomes
Yeah.
important for them to have an understanding of these papers. So, just was wondering what could be the role of an individual with a liberal arts education in a lot of companies that are working in this particular field, like Google, etc., that are coming up with new technologies. Can someone from a liberal arts background, what kind of role can they play over there?
Dr. Swati, you see, technology is something which is very, very value neutral. Okay. And it is so independent that it will happen. The technological advances will take place, whether we like it or not. Now, just to give you, AI is something which is very, very recent now. And this is going to be the technology of future. It is already defining our lives in a very, very strong manner even today. But let me just take you back by few years, say 45 years back, or maybe 50 years back, when for the first time, this particular machine, which is called ultrasonography machine, which was discovered at some point of time, right? And this machine was invented basically to understand the functioning of the organs in your abdominal system, right? Now, the extension of that same machine was also to understand the gender of the fetus, right? Now, point is, and this particular way of looking at USG machine for determining the gender of the, not gender of the fetus, but the condition of the fetus when a lady was carrying, to understand if the child is deformed or whatever, and so that some kind of corrective actions could be taken. But what was the social implications of this? People in our society and many other societies, they started using this machine for gender identification of the fetus, and so much of feticide has happened in our country that the gender index itself is so skewed from the perspective of gender equality. Now, this is the usage of technology in a very, very negative sense, right? But then the technologies are going to be there. Similarly, we had another very important technology of cloning. Now, cloning, we knew that is going to be very important, but the moment we cloned Dolly for her mother, we knew that there were ethical questions, because today, if we had allowed the cloning as a technology to actually being experimented, at least 1,000 Santosh Kumars would have been seated in various places and without knowing the original Santosh Kumar, right? And it's possible that other 900 would be engaged in all kind of anti-social and anti-national activities. Now, technologies are neutral. We attach value to that particular technology, and hence, from the multiple disciplinary perspective, we need to understand the technology so that technology should not sit on our head, but we should be in a position to utilize that technology for our purpose. Anything that you do is there in the gaze. There's going to be a system, there's going to be actually a situation where we are covered 360. You see, satellite is already monitoring our activities, whether we like it or not. You type something on Facebook, and in next 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes time, you see the same thing happening on Instagram, or wherever you travel, it travels with you, right? They are actually monitoring you. So why not you start monitoring the technology so that you are in a position to stay safe? But who can do that? Now look at this particular machine, right? I'm showing you my cell phone. Apple as a cell phone is supposed to be one of the best technological innovations in the present time, and it uses the most sophisticated gadgetry technologies. Now, the people who are seated with Steve Jobs, or who were seated with Steve Jobs, at least 50% of them came with the liberal education background. Because then they were the people who could understand the sociological implications, the economic implications, the design aspect of it, and how the usage is going to be of it. A simple person with simple electronics and communication background may not be able to do this. So you need to have a deeper understanding of everything around you so that you can decide what is it that you actually want to have and how you want to have, and how it is, how you can prevent it from changing your world. Rather, it should help you and not change you. This is very important. So technology and society, they both must go hand in hand together. Ultimately, the engineers and the doctors, everything, they belong to the technology. Robots have already replaced the doctors in the medical, in the surgery rooms. But does it mean that the medical sciences is going to be dead because the robots are there? It's not going to be like that, right? But an additional paper of robotics have to be added to the 4.5 years or maybe MD or MS courses. So Dr. Aditi has a question. Liberal arts needs 4 years of completion of the graduation degree over 3 years of traditional graduation. Dr. Aditi, let me give you the new education policy perspective, because I was one of the authors. Fortunately, life offered me this opportunity. So what exactly is going to happen? The entire higher education is going to be still divided into 5-year framework. Now NEP talks about first year exit option, second year exit option, third year exit option, fourth year, and finally fifth year. But the final fifth year format is not mandatory any further, or is not going to be mandatory, what is called masters. So it is going to be 4 years of undergraduation, which is called BA honors within quotes, which is very important. And MA is voluntary. If the person wants to get into higher education, after BA honors, the person can straightway go to the PhD program. This is what is going to be the shape of the things. But in my scheme of things, personally speaking, I think the master's degree is very important. But that master's degree, again, cannot be equal to the conventional master's degree that we have done, all of us have done. It has to be an interdisciplinary, skill-oriented master's discipline. And that is why, looking at the 4-year undergraduate courses, where the 7th and 8th semester, technically speaking, will be almost at par with any good master's program. And then you go for a very, very, super powerful master's program because you want to do a master's, but that master will have to be again redefined, where it will not be in the same discipline, it will be interdisciplinary, probably emanating out of your major and minor combinations. So you could do a you could do a master's in political economy for that matter, or development economics, so far economics is the subject, but when I'm talking about masters in development economics or environmental economics with a specialization or sub-specialization of public policy, that is the master which is going to be for the future, right? So this particular conventional 3-year education with 1 year of diploma in liberal education is going to be there only for maybe 2 more years. But after that, what I'm saying is actually going to be the reality. And why I'm saying with so much of confidence, because we have been able to prepare that kind of scheme of things for the government of India to adopt, and government of India is actually going to adopt whether we like it or not. So the teachers will have to undergo lots of training. The students will have to, and the more important thing is the parents will have to understand the needs of the future education and the future of their children. The students will have to look at engineering and medicine and chartered accountancy, but in a very, very interdisciplinary manner, which is actually going to be the reality. And that is what is called liberal education. NEP talks about liberal education in a very, very clear-cut manner, in a very, very clear manner. It says that it is going to be like that. Yeah. You need to unmute yourself, Nehaji. Swati, you want to say something?
Yeah, she had a question. The Indian education system till grade 12, especially in some boards, the state boards, is taught in a very limited and a restrictive manner. So if a student from such a background wants to take up liberal arts, how can they adjust?
Oh, you see, point is, talking about the school education system, I think CBSE has been able to bring in lots and lots of change in their own selection of the subject. So they can actually offer you within the subject domain of science and humanities so many combinations possible. So at this point in time, obviously, many students from the 12th background, the conventional background, they are able to do this. What happens after the school when they come to the college? It's a new beginning of education system for them, right? So students do not find it very difficult to adjust. Obviously, there is some kind of challenge initially, because somebody who has never studied, papers like philosophy or anthropology, and they have studied science, physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, it will take them a week's time to adjust to the new idea, right? As to why archaeology is very important, or why anthropology is very important, why ethics is it's only a matter of 15 days to 1 week's time, 1 week to 15 days time. After that, the things settle down. So students take it up as a in a very, very challenging manner. And most of the students, I think, all my life I have taught the students of various kinds. They actually have, they have gone beyond my expectations. They have been so good. And students actually can do these kind of things in a very, very nice manner. Point is, what is it that they want to study? This is very important for us to define for them. So we have to provide them with lots and lots of options and opportunities. And this is the essence of liberal education. So liberal education has nothing to do with the rigor of education, right? We are not liberal with the rigor. We are actually with the heightened rigor. So we teach them the most difficult things in the most difficult manner. But liberal actually defines that there is a liberty to study what you want to study, because you take the call of your heart and take yourself in that direction of your future engagement, which you actually want to do. Now, there's something called sports psychology, which many institutions do not teach, right? Or papers of this kind. So how many sports communication persons are there, except for Harsha Bhogle? And he himself is a graduate of IIM Ahmedabad, an engineer getting into IIM Ahmedabad, a conventional route. And then he became a sports commentator, one of the finest commentators we have in cricket, right? So who can become a sports commentator? Somebody who has done sports sociology or psychology along with mass communication or English paper, right? How many sports magazines do we have? And who actually writes there? So flair for writing is something which needs to be developed. along with the idea of what sports is all about. Right? Nehaji, I think you have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I was just
So
agreeing with you, sir. I was agreeing with you.
yeah. So anything else from the students? Anything that they would want to ask me?
I think that's
The
about it. And
time
anyways,
was,
I think we have taken too much of your time.
no, I'm
We have
perfectly,
made
I'm
it.
sorry, I've outstretched my time by 15 minutes, good 15 minutes.
It was so nice to hear that. Actually, after listening to you, I feel like we should go back and re-educate ourselves because we missed out on such good opportunities. So I think maybe it will be interesting for the students to go back to when they go to college now. There's more to look forward to, especially with the new education policy that you're talking about.
Yes. You see, for next 2 years, there's not going to be much change because the teachers in this country will still be preparing. But in case somebody wishes to look at PP Savani University's liberal education institution, we are already there. You see, we have started offering the courses according to the new education policy because I knew as one of the writers of the NEP policy document what is going to be there. So we are already in compliance with that. There are many other institutions who are also doing the similar kind of things. So students must do their research well and look at the best institution, whatever is possible.
Yes.
Because the jobs of tomorrow cannot be defined today. It is so uncertain, right? And they need to look at the call of their heart. Anything, wherever the students put their hands, is going to be the profession for them. Ultimately, it's all about looking at your career. And career, the word career itself is getting redefined very fast. So what is it that you want to earn your livelihood out of? Something that makes you happy? Is that important? Or doing a 9 to 5 mundane, conventional, regular kind of job is more important? This is something which the new generation of students actually look at from their perspective, and they are very prolific in their thinking. They are very, very strong in their thinking. So students of this generation, I consider them to be my teachers because their thought process is much more ahead of me. I'm still product of that generation, but my students are actually my good teachers. And they tell me, sir, how to think differently. So I really bow my head to my students many a times that good kids, you have taught me how to see the world differently in the present times. So I'm very confident about the new age students because they are the people, if trained properly today, they will be able to take the future in a very, very nice direction, very, very desired direction, which our society, polity, country, economics, everything needs. It needs to change. It needs to change. And change is just around the corner.
Sir is so full of optimism. Thank
Yes.
you, sir, for your time. Now I want to hand it over to Dr. Swati Agarwal to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah. Please,
Thank
Dr. Swati.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for joining us, for agreeing to be part of a session. And thank you so much for a very engaging and a reflective session as well. There were so many ideas that you've shared about liberal thinking, about liberal philosophy, that emphasize how we can optimize our own potential as individuals. And the very clear way that you've presented the entire liberal arts education system, which sometimes seems very complex and abstract to many individuals, but you have shown it in a very simple way that we can follow, and also shown its practical implications as well. There are a lot of times we are unable to see, or youngsters are unable to see, because it feels very idealistic. But you actually showed, the practical side of things, that why, having that kind of an education, that kind of studying in that kind of environment can lead to developing careers that can be very unique and that are applicable in the real world. So thank you so
Yes.
much for that. We can really see now how the world would benefit from younger people who are trained in liberal education, who will definitely have a lot more opportunities opening up to them because of this kind of background, but how they can bring a change in the world that's much needed. And also for your inspiring words about how students can make their own mark, create their own unique career for themselves, and chart their own path. So thank you so much for such an enlightening session, sir. It was wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. Thank you, Dr. Neha. And thank you, Dr. Aditi, for having me here and providing me this opportunity to interact with the young minds, and look forward to many more such opportunities. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you everyone for joining us. It was great to have you. Yeah. And we will stop the session now and